Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the Pro Wrestling Logic channel, and I'm super excited today. If you're new here, please subscribe, like, comment below if you like what we're doing, and give us ideas if you don't. A couple of notes before we get started. I'm going to do a second interview with Gary Michael Capetta, famed World Championship Wrestling and WWF ring announcer from the 70s through mid-90s. That is going to take place on Thursday evening, so it should be up, I know, later than Friday midday. If you have questions for that interview and you'd like to be featured, please comment below with your questions, and we'll see if we can get them into that interview. In any event, we're starting a new series. This is the Smoky Mountain Wrestling Review Series. What we're going to do is we're going to go episodic television, all 200 or so episodes. I think I have everything in order. If not, I've got at least 95% of all episodes available to review. And so what we're going to do is we're going to do daily reviews of Smoky Mountain from the beginning through the history of the promotion. The promotion ran from the late 1991 through the end of 1995. So there's about 200 episodes or so to go through. It's my favorite promotion of all time, and I love the logic, no pun intended, of the promotion. I'm a Jim Cornette guy, so if you're not, or if you have problems with the way Jim's portrayed in the past few years, certainly you might not get on with the channel. But if you are a Jim Cornette guy, you really will enjoy the deep dive into Smoky Mountain. We will be doing that for every old school, when I say old school, I'm meaning pre-1995 or pre-Nitro era promotion I can find, from the WWF to NWA to World Class, Mid-South, and all points in between. If you have a series you'd like us to cover on the channel, because our goal is to be the one-stop shop for pro wrestling audio reviews as well as interviews. That's going to be a 3 to 5 year build. We understand this, as do the people involved in promoting the channel, but that's our goal, and we need your help with that. So if there's something you'd like to hear, please leave it in the comments below. All right, so we're going to get to episode 1 of Smoky Mountain Television. Our ring announcer, our commentators rather, are Dutch Mantell and Bob Caudle. They run down the card for the day to open the show. I love Bob Caudle. I think he's terribly underrated. Maybe a little bit Southern, but no more Southern than Jim Ross is. And Bob had a way of carrying himself as a television presenter that immediately commanded respect, and he acted with dignity. And so, runs down the card with Dutch Mantell. Mantell is really an interesting case here. He's an amalgamation of the Georgia Championship Wrestling Roddy Piper, along with Jesse Ventura, turned down a little bit, as he was really good, at least in this episode, with disseminating information of a historic and significant value, while still sharing, heelish tendencies. I love the two together. I think it's going to be a blast to rewatch this. I haven't watched the Smoky Mountain stuff since at least 2009 or so, so it's been about 11 years since I've seen Smoky, and I'm really excited to go through it, being my favorite promotion and all. Which is weird. I grew up in a WWF territory, but what turned me on to Smoky Mountain, just for those that are interested, was the coverage it received in the Stanley Western Mags, otherwise known as the After Mags. I was an avid reader as a kid, and Smoky Mountain received coverage in the family magazines, at least 1 to 2 stories per magazine. So you'd see one in Inside Wrestling, one in The Wrestler, and one in Pro Wrestling Illustrated. So like 3 or 4 stories a month about this promotion, where there were guys I didn't know, but the stories sounded compelling, had me hooked. And I remember right around when I graduated high school in 99, or maybe it was 2000, but about 21 years ago, tape trader John McAdam, who I'd love to have on the program. If anyone knows how to get in touch with John, please let me know. But tape trader John McAdam had the whole run of Smoky Mountain, and I plunked down the money for the series, and I was glued to my television set for the entire run. It was just phenomenal, and I'll never forget it. And so anyway, we go into Our opening match for what is the first television in Smoky Mountain history is Killer Kyle versus Robert Gibson. Robert Gibson, of course, of the Rock and Roll Express fame. By this point, I don't think Ricky Morton was free to pursue outside dates. I believe he was still under contract to WCW for a couple more months here. I'd have to cross-reference that. But Robert had left or had gained permission or something to be on the Smoky Mountain shows. And he, was a single star. Obviously, the wait was for Ricky to come in to do the whole Rock and Roll Express thing, which didn't happen too many months in the future. But this is the start. Killer Kyle, who later became a major force in Smoky Mountain, has a compelling opening match. And I love the fact that Jim Cornette puts together a match for the opening match of the history of the promotion on television. With a strong established star, and they're in the Carolinas taping this. I believe it's South Carolina somewhere taping this. So I mean, you've got Southern style wrestling, you've got Southern names that are respectable and known, and they're kind of there's always, and if you notice throughout the program, what I love about Cornette's booking and what I love about booking in general when it's done well is that every segment should have a purpose. You should be able to take any segment out of a television program and say, okay, there are 2 guys, or in a tag match there are 4 guys, or if you have to have a triple threat match, or one of those multi-man clusters that are such a mess these days. This match, whatever the match is, this is the purpose of the match. This is what the match is here to accomplish. If you can't, even as a fan, identify what the heck I just saw, certainly as a booker and as a talent. But as a fan, you should be able to go, hey, the goal of that match was to make that guy look good. Or the goal of that match was to make me hate that guy. Or the goal of that match was to make me love that guy. Then it was wasted time and wasted energy by the staff putting it together. And I'm sorry, no, I do not believe in the whole sometimes let's fill out the card with our friends mentality. Please go headbutt a brick wall if that's the way you book. Because sooner or later, it insults the intelligence of the fans that you build with to get them to be compelled by the characters in your program. Now, it may not happen right away. It may take several months. But at the end of the day, every match should have some takeaway. So if there's 8 matches on the card, you should be able to, and this was always my litmus test. Even as a kid, I remember doing this. I remember going to house shows for WWF at the time, and looking at the little slip that would come with the program, that he'd have all the matches on it. And I could look at it the next day after going to the show and go, all right, this guy looks strong. This guy was the champion, so he's really strong. This guy beat a guy that's right below the champion, so maybe a few months from now, he'll be in a championship match. And I could do this at 8 or 9, 10 years old, right? So that's not done, especially in independence today, but certainly national companies, you can't do that. You can't look at a Ricochet match and say 3 months from now he's going to be in there with Drew McIntyre. You can't look at an Andrade match and say that Cedric Alexander is getting ready for Andrade, because they don't book that way anymore. And part of the reason the ratings are down on a national level, especially for WWE, is that ultimately that mentality of every match should matter died with the Attitude Era, and I think the only way to really strengthen wrestling is to bring that mentality back. Sorry for the rabbit trail, but anyway. So we go back to Killer Kyle and Robert Gibson. Violin case. If you've never seen Smoky Mountain before, Killer Kyle is wearing a business suit, suspenders, white shirt, dark pants, and he's carrying a violin case. What's in the case? We don't know. Will he use the case as a weapon? We don't know. The announcers acknowledge, hey, what's the case for? They don't overplay it. They don't oversell it. They don't pull an Eric Rowan on it. They just, hey, it's a throwaway line. What's it for? Anyway, Killer Kyle uses good power throughout the early pages of the match. Robert Gibson hits the post, and the match slows down. Kyle works the arm. And then one of the lines of the program, Dutch Mantel, they're talking about the Rock and Roll Express and how they got the name and all this stuff. And they talk about Dutch asks, were they ever rock stars? And he says something to the effect of, I wrote down part of the quote here. He says that the Rock and Roll Express had a record at one point, and the record went plywood. And I laughed at this. It was hilarious. And so the end of the match comes when Robert Gibson wins with a sunset flip. Now, Killer Kyle has the majority of the match. I'd say he's got 70% of the offense in the match. And he gets out-wrestled. He gets beaten with a wrestling move. 1, 2, 3, he loses. Now, I was wondering as I was watching it, and I hadn't seen it in a while, I was wondering if there would be a little bit of get the heat back, maybe a clothesline. He puts the boots to Gibson. That doesn't happen. It didn't need to, but if it had, it might have cemented things a little further. However, being the first match on the first program, a clean win, a good way to go. And then we jump over to an interview with the Fantastics. Just to capitalize that, they're happy to be here. They've been all over the world. I believe it was Bobby Fulton who's going to be in the main event. Says that, the Koloffs are tough. And they talk about Vladimir and Ivan. Ivan, of course, a former WWF champion and a man who have beaten Bruno Sammartino back in the day. So then we go to an interview with Barb Armstrong. Barb Armstrong is the commissioner of Smoky Mountain Wrestling. Now, I love this version of an authority figure. Here's why. He is a former wrestler, so he knows what the heck he's talking about. He is a almost retired wrestler, so he has no vested interest in being an active competitor. This is not Shane and Stephanie McMahon. This is a legitimate star in the territory who fans respect and who, when he says something, they're going to listen. This is established in his opening promo on television. He basically says the following. He's proud of pro wrestling. He's proud of being an old school wrestler, but he wants to bring back old school family style wrestling. Now, what has he established right there? His core audience is families. His core audience is people that want to bring their kids to the arena and go and have a night out as a family unit. They've established a target demo within the first 15 minutes of a television program. Super intelligent and something that independent promoters especially could learn from. He's got 30 years in the sport. He wants to bring back a mentality where wrestling is treated like sports. That I love, and I love that AEW is trying to do that. I don't think modern day they're doing it enough, but acknowledging that too. So basically what Bob is saying here in a nutshell is, look, we know that WCW, we know that WWF is insulting your intelligence. We're not endeavoring to do that. We're going to bring back wrestling the way it should be and the way you like it. He then says there's going to be heavy fines for anybody who breaks the rules, no foreign objects, no weapons, and fines for those who hit the ref. What has he established? In a 60-second, 90-second promo, whatever it is, he's established on the law, there are rules. If you break them, there will be consequences. He did not need to be out there for 20 minutes. He did not need to threaten anybody. He did not need to do anything. All he did was statement of fact that gets forward a clear message. Keep it simple, stupid. Now, Barry Horowitz versus primetime Brian Lee. So Horowitz, by this point, who in an earlier incarnation known as Jack Hart in Florida, by this point, though, he had spent several years as a enhancement talent or carpenter for various promotions, including most notably the World Wrestling Federation. He would later in 94, 95, get the victory over Chris Candido, fellow Smoky Mountain alum, and kind of have a little bit of a win. I think he had just come off, or they had just been doing in Global Wrestling Federation down in Texas, the winner storyline instead of the loser, Barry Horowitz, the winner, accentuating that. So he's given some decent offense here, which is kind of surprising. But again, what we have is an unknown talent with a known talent. The goal to get the known talent, or the unknown talent, in this case Brian Lee, over with the fans by giving them someone they know and watching that person routinely handle them. And so matches, very basic, very simple. shocks that Barry Horowitz hit some major impact moves like a twisting neckbreaker on Lee. Shocking again with a belly-to-belly suplex Magnum style by Horowitz. I'm shocked by this just because they're power moves, and I wasn't expecting them from a guy with Barry's stature against a guy like Brian Lee. However, here's an interesting fact. By him using moves that are known to be in that era finishers, it makes it look credible that he, a guy who you might see on television dropping to national stars, but in this world, he's credible. He's learned enough about wrestling to where he can use, more important maneuvers to gain potential victories against a much bigger opponent, no less. So that's useful in and of itself. And then we see, a cancellation backbreaker, which is the finish for Brian Lee. Don't quite understand the cancellation name in the backbreaker. Maybe they'll expand on that a little further in a future television. But the backbreaker, again, showing his power. Lee has a really good physique at this point, and I think, he might need a little bit of seasoning at this juncture with, how he handles the crowd interaction. I saw some lacking there, but for the most part, a homegrown talent right from the beginning who is pretty impressive looking. Then we move to Ron Wright, former Tennessee area standout through the 60s, 70s, and early 80s. He's sitting in a wheelchair. He says wrestling beat him up pretty good, needs a hip replacement, needs a knee replacement, is in Smoky Mountain to prove that he can lead men to championships and make some money so he can have this surgery. There's some conjecture as to whether we should feel bad for Mr. Wright. For those that know history, we know that we shouldn't, but for those that are watching this for the first time, there's a question like, hey, this guy's in a wheelchair. Should we feel bad for him or not? What's the deal? But he promises he's going to take some people to the top. Joe Costanza up next against Tim Horner. Really throwaway match here, but again, Southern babyface who is identifiable to that audience, especially being they're not that far away from Georgia, where Tim Horner in the 80s beat, I believe it was Road Warrior Hawk on television with a roll-up pinning combination, Oklahoma roll, if I remember correctly. So there's a relatability factor to this particular audience of this particular star, and Kazana is here to put over that star. I've never been particularly a Tim Horner fan. I think the Garth Brooks, him coming out to Garth Brooks music is a little hokey, but it works for that place, that time, and that audience, and that's all that matters. Beautiful bridge pinning combination by Horner for the win, and we're off and running. We've got we've got a heel. We've got a babyface winning in Gibson. We've got a babyface winning in Lee. We've got a babyface winning in Horner. So we're stacking up the heroes. We're stacking up the heroes on the first TV, so fans have people to believe in, and that's important. So Jim Cornette, who the promotion will be built around the whole time, comes out and says that he's there for charity. He feels bad for the people of South Carolina. That's the only reason he's in the building. Says that he believes in what Smoky Mountain stands for. Is looking forward to a promotion where it's not about gimmicks. It's not about show business. It's about wrestling, and what he came up with. He also says that it's not about steroids here. So he's taking veiled shots at the national promotions, which automatically turns the fans into, hey, he's on our side. He doesn't want to give us crap. He wants to give us something special. And I think that's valuable, and to be able to do that in your first TV says a whole lot about where the promotion can go. He then acknowledges his best success in wrestling is when he managed the Midnight Express. So he's going to bring a team of the same ilk, a new team, to Smoky Mountain. for the purposes of dominating like he did before. Again, short promo, gets to the point, and makes you wonder, who's he going to bring? What's going to happen next week? What's going to happen next month? When's he going to bring them? Is it someone we know? Is it someone we don't know? A lot of questions left by the promo. Then we go with Paul Miller versus the Black Scorpion. I kind of think the Black Scorpion thing is satire. Obviously it is. But what I mean by that is I don't know who they were ticked at to bring the Black Scorpion character out, especially Black Scorpion was unmasked in 90. Here we are at the end of 91, almost a year later, and the Black Scorpion has completely changed body shape, muscular stature, and size. Don't know how that happened unless we have a transformation chamber afoot. But anyway, the Black Scorpion, we see his opponent, Paul Miller, an unknown talent, who is there, and Miller is on the receiving end of a brutal gut-wrench suplex. An amazing thing. The Scorpion's cocky, he's arrogant, and he gets beaten with a small package. So now what you've done is you've sent a subliminal message. Gimmicks, people with names that are silly, people that are over the top. They're going to get beaten here, and they're going to get beaten by wrestlers. Again, subliminal messaging to try and get the fans to get the point. We're not here for the traditional stuff that's on national television. We're here for an alternative. Brian Lee promo says that he's here to enter the tournament for the heavyweight championship. Dutch Mantell leaves the broadcast booth and says that Lee has wrestled his matches very much wrongly, and then says that Dutch Mantell, has a different plan, and he would have wrestled the match completely differently. Brian Lee chimes in with a very hokey but honest, yes, you also would have lost, and it builds to a potential for Lee versus Dutch Mantell down the road. Again, we've established people we care about, the people we don't, and reasons to want to see them fight in the future, all within the confines of a 44-minute program. We then go to our main event, Bobby Fulton versus Ivan Koloff. Really basic match, old school match, trading of holds, arm bars, leg locks, strikes mainly by Koloff. And they brawl to the outside. Ron Wright comes out mid-match. He's scouting. We don't know who. Is he scouting Bobby Fulton? Is he scouting Ivan Koloff? One would assume Koloff because Koloff is the heel. But we don't know. We haven't fully established. We think we know that Ron Wright is a heel, but we don't know that for sure. Anyway, Wright passes an object to Ivan Koloff. Koloff uses it to blast his opponent and gain the victory illegally. Jackie Fulton comes out and rabble-rouses and brawls around to defend his partner. And then next, it's immediately set up by, I believe it was Bob Armstrong, that next week we'll see the Fultons versus the Koloffs, and we go off the air knowing what our main event is and knowing we haven't been over-inundated with too much information, but that every segment mattered. That is the end of the review of the first Smoky Mountain Television. I'll try to get dates on these. Some of them have dates, some of them don't, but we're talking about October 1991, that much I do know. Any event, we're going to have one of these a day. Sometimes I'll do multiple in a day. Sometimes I'll upload them. Sometimes I'll just leave them for the next day. But in any event, if you enjoyed this, leave a comment below, like, subscribe, hit that bell notification, and we will see you next time. Keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment. Until next time, everybody.